Thanks everyone for joining us for Unifying Sales Customers and Partners with Data-Driven Quote-to-Cash Solutions. Please note everybody that we are recording this session. We're excited to see all of you here today and join our panelists as we discuss the combined power of Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Salesforce Revenue Cloud. So briefly, here's our agenda. We're going to start off with a brief presentation to help outline the theme. Then we're going to have some questions to further flesh out some of the key concepts. We also look forward to your questions, and I'm going to encourage anybody who has questions to type them into the chat window, and we will answer some of them as we go along if they're timely to the discussion that we're covering, or we'll cover them off at the end. Okay, so let's start with some introductions. Happy to see a couple of folks here. Ellen, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at Pulse Secure?
So my name's Ellen Terwilliger. I'm a business analyst, and I actually run the program management office also. And I'm accountable for the end-to-end business processes for Pulse Secure, including everything from lead to cash to technical support and soup to nuts.
Wonderful, Ellen. Marc, thank you for joining us as well. Why don't you tell us a bit about your role and what you do at Pulse Secure?
Hey, Ellen. Hey, everyone. Sure. I'm IT director at Pulse Secure for both infrastructure and applications, with a particular focus on the applications that run our company end to end, whether they're front of the house or back of the house, and that includes lead to cash systems.
And Marc, why don't you tell us a bit about what Pulse Secure does so that everybody understands? What do you sell? How do you sell it? Who are your customers? That kind of thing.
So we sell secure access solutions. Our wheelhouse has been VPN solutions, but has augmented over the years. We came out of Juniper's Pulse product line. And so we are a secure access provider, mostly VPN historically.
Got it. Okay, that's great. Thanks for telling us a bit about that. So it's also my pleasure to introduce Andy Peebler, who's the VP of Go-to-Market for Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Andy, why don't you tell everybody a bit about yourself and your journey and what you focus on at Salesforce?
Sure, happy to, Alan. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having Salesforce here today. I run go-to-market for our Commerce Cloud product platform here at Salesforce. I've worked in e-commerce for about 20 years, much of that on the consulting side, kind of leading and running e-commerce implementations, and then about the last 5 years in product. And here at Salesforce, I've been really active in driving how Commerce Cloud plays with Revenue Cloud and helping to guide our kind of future vision for how all of these things come together for customers like Pulse Secure.
That's excellent. And Andy, I understand that you have a bit more information, some things you can share with us so that everybody in the session can understand what Commerce Cloud does and how that could help them.
Yes, I do. And thanks for the opportunity to do that. So I really am excited to hear from folks at Pulse Secure, I'm sure, like all of our other attendees. So I'm going to try to keep this part of the discussion pretty brief, but really as an orientation to what Commerce Cloud at Salesforce is, because people may not know as much about Commerce Cloud as they do about some of our other bigger clouds here at Salesforce. So thank you very much.
Exactly. That's what we were hoping for, is that you can kind of help set the stage for us a bit.
First of all, just a quick forward-looking statement. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some future product. So this is just a reminder that as a publicly traded company, our roadmap is subject to change. So please make any purchase decisions based on currently available product. Now we can go to the next one. Great, thank you very much. So Salesforce Commerce Cloud is one of the largest Commerce Cloud platforms on the planet. So we really are a leader in e-commerce, from both business to consumer and B2B commerce at scale. So we run a huge proportion of global enterprise retail, CG, and now B2B manufacturing and high-tech commerce experiences online. Have really great track record of growth with our customers, and of course are proud of the fact that all of our commerce apps are connected and driven by what is the world's #1 CRM. And we can, I think, deliver very differentiated experiences because specifically of that CRM backbone and how we can play with the other channels that customers tend to interact with. If we go to the next slide, I can give a little bit more perspective on that. So commerce, has been a pretty meaningful part of Salesforce for some time, but even more important now in the middle of the pandemic. What we've seen is that e-commerce is even more critical for all of our customers now in the times that we're in. And we've basically sustained peak holiday level demand since the pandemic began on our B2C commerce, really broad surges in just about every direct-to-consumer kind of commerce. We've seen 4 times the growth in B2B commerce orders for B2B and just tons of shopper visits, especially in certain categories on the consumer side. But suffice to say, commerce is going through the roof across most businesses that we encounter and work with now. If we can go to the next slide. And really, from a Salesforce perspective, this cross-channel motion, because commerce is simply a part of our bigger Salesforce platform. We've already got kind of a common platform with common customer identification, common linkages across all the channels that Salesforce provides. So Salesforce has really capable and awesome service channel applications, for example, for call center and marketing channel applications that drive engagement for B2B and B2C customers. And we know that commerce, even though it's really important and often is where the orders may be taken, the actual commerce purchase is not an end-all be-all. It actually is a result of a whole host of interactions across channels. So cross-channel in commerce has always been something really important. And in the B2B realm, specifically what we're talking about today, that takes on a lot of different dimensions. So the visual that you see in this slide is a pretty good example of kind of B2C commerce actions, which tend to be a lot about marketing flows and service flows, et cetera. In B2B engagements, we've got to start talking about sales reps, and we also need to start talking about different pricing and rate plans, especially if there are quoting motions associated with selling these channels. In either way, we're really proud of the fact that we've got all of these channels connected here on the Salesforce platform. Let's go ahead to 6. And in B2B, this is oftentimes when we talk about B2B, specifically in commerce, there can be a lot of confusion and I think challenge in some companies to even kind of think through what to do in B2B commerce, because many companies in B2B don't necessarily sell direct to their customers. They may have pretty robust channels, partners that they're selling through, distributors that they may be selling through. Lots of companies have reps, outside reps that are quota holding, typically driving negotiations and customer expansion, et cetera. And so, when we interview B2B buyers, the people who are actually doing these purchases across almost all industries, what we find is really pretty interesting. And that's that yes, those buyers care a lot about having a B2B commerce digital experience that they can get support from when they're interested in researching products or interested maybe in purchasing things that they've already bought before. But those same customers who are really clamoring for digital and B2B experiences are the same kind of people who turn right around and say, I got to talk to my rep when I have a question, or I need to be able to talk to my distributor or the retail chain that I may purchase things from and get clarification. Even if I may end up ordering online, I still expect to be able to get really robust support from everybody else that I've talked to before. And that can make it really challenging, both for companies to think about how much to invest in B2B commerce, because your customers are still going to be making purchases in other ways. But I think it also presents a big opportunity for companies to think about this connected ecosystem from day one. Because in many ways, what customers are really clamoring for is better connectivity, better transparency through all of these channels, so they can get the same great information, whether it's an order status or quote information, or yes, to do reorder or even get help. From customer perspective, it's all the same, and they expect the same great information, the same caliber of response in every single channel you interact with. We can go to the next slide. And digital is kind of making this problem both worse and more exciting from an opportunity perspective. And I say that because we're all now in pretty complex commercial motions. Companies like Salesforce have, for example, very complex distribution schemes where we've got a really robust mix of digital and channel partner kinds of activities and direct reps and other partners that operate on our behalf. And so products, price, data on customers end up having to sort of traverse through all of these touch points. So when it comes time to do things like new product introductions or even adjust and drive more aggressive renewal activity, for example, what that means for companies engaged in this kind of complexity is you just got a whole lot of systems you got to touch every time you want to do anything, every time you want to launch something new or even change a simple price. And that does result in, meaningful downtime, meaningful delays in introducing new products, getting them out to market. Because of the complex ecosystems we're all selling in, keeping that product and price and customer data synchronized through those channels becomes a bit of a challenge. We go to the next slide. And you add to that this whole digital sort of imperative, and customers themselves in the B2B space are maturing and expecting better online experiences, especially from customer support perspective, like order status, updates on account, paying bills, things like that. There's a broad expectation among customers, even in segments that traditionally didn't care, to have compelling and accurate digital experiences. So for companies trying to solve this in the face of, deeply complex channels, lots of data going all over the place, and in many cases, kind of having to build new muscles inside to build and deliver these new digital experiences, that's really where B2B commerce comes in. And that's really how we see B2B commerce as a platform, helping companies expand their connectivity with their B2B customers through this digital channel. And not just for ordering in commerce, but also providing some of the support kinds of activities that you see represented on this slide. Let's go on to the next one. Great, perfect. And this is Salesforce B2B Commerce. As you can see, Salesforce B2B Commerce provides digital experiences like the one you see there for one of our customers in the iPhone frame, as well as a back-end set of experiences to manage the assortment, inventory, product mix in the web experience. We've also got really great interfaces on Salesforce B2B Commerce where sales reps and other account executive and support servicing people can interact and adjust pricing in the commerce site directly because it's all connected to the rest of the Salesforce platform. We go to the next slide. The features on the platform are important because it is important that you can address really B2B specific kinds of requirements. So the platform supports customer specific pricing. In fact, it does a really good job of supporting complex customer level pricing, lots of ability to promote and surface large catalogs of products for long tail shopping kinds of experiences. It's very often used for things like replacement parts, replenishment parts, things that are ordered off of a highly negotiated sort of set of pricing lists. And increasingly now for helping to configure larger types of purchases as well, things like capital equipment and other software types of subscriptions. We've got all the capabilities you need to be able to drive that kind of high impact business. But the features alone really only get you so far, because remember back in a couple of slides ago, I talked about how complex our selling ecosystems are and how we all kind of end up having product and price information all over the place. So the trick is, how do we keep that in sync, and how do we allow you to launch commerce, but still keep every other channel, every other sales rep, all the people that touch your customers in sync? And that's really through connectivity to the rest of the Salesforce platform. So if we go into the next couple of slides, I can illustrate what this means and where I think we've got even more potential in the future. So first of all, commerce is not just about a website. A lot of companies in B2B especially are getting started there, and that's really important to have high impact digital self-service kinds of experiences. But sooner than later, almost everybody, including B2B companies, are going to be asked to provide other kinds of experiences. So headless commerce experiences, things driven by APIs, potentially even including renewals inside of companies' own software products, et cetera. So we think that's really important. Commerce is not only the way to drive the website experience, but also to power all of this kind of API connectivity you might need out in the ecosystem, or to help you participate in punch-out types of experiences, for example. We care a lot about that as well. Go to the next slide. But then underneath the covers is where I think this gets a lot more interesting. Like everything that I just talked about could fairly well describe just about any company's, commerce type applications and how those tend to work. Here at Salesforce, where I think it gets really fun and where we've got a much bigger opportunity to help companies and impact the market, is because we've got all of these different connected experiences on this common platform. So Salesforce has a really robust CPQ sets of applications and billing that now form the backbone of our Revenue Cloud. We've obviously got the top CRM and sales service applications on the planet. And now with our product engineering, we're actually building all of these things perfectly seamlessly together, meaning common sets of services underneath the major applications are in the future, and increasingly even now, going to be driven by the same objects in the background. So the same data model for things like products and price, for example, same data model for orders, contracts, invoices, etc. And so what that gives us as more and more of these experiences come together is that great ability to, in the absolute most agile way possible, support customers with launching and managing their products and price in one place, say Salesforce CPQ, and having all of that data automatically flow through to B2B Commerce, so you don't have to worry about one-off integrations for new product integrations. That's exactly the kind of benefit that you get from having all of these things connected on the common platform. And we've got some work to do. So we've done some of this already. Obviously, even today, B2B Commerce is integrated with the core customer data model, account data model on Salesforce perfectly cleanly. But there's some integration work from a pricing data model perspective. So as we're working at Salesforce on kind of the future and a more perfect world where all of these things are going to be absolutely looking at the same exact services, same exact data model. In the interim, what we've also been doing is building some helper tools to assist those companies at actually launching some of these experiences now, while our roadmap is coming together. And so in the next couple slides, I'll give you a little preview there, and then I'm happy to engage with the rest of the panel. So this is kind of the vision briefly before we talk about what we've got released now. And we are really proud of how far along we are in this journey, meaning having a kind of single platform across our sales, service, commerce, and even partner-facing apps that can handle any transaction type, any revenue model, and then be powered off of common data. So this is really the future that we're headed to. This is, I think, based really strongly on lots of customer engagement, customer research, and really what our B2B customers are asking us for. And the end of the game here is to have all of this really unified, such that we can speed product introductions, give you a lot more agility as you're trying to launch new revenue models, et cetera, because we can do it across every channel. And then now the exciting thing, if we go to the next couple slides, I'll just close with some things that we've just released that make this a little more accessible today. So earlier this year, we released a connector out on Salesforce Labs that actually does tie the Salesforce CPQ and B2B Commerce app together for a handful of key use cases, namely syncing product price, connecting quotes from requests from the storefront experience into the direct quoting process that's managed by the backend, and then of course synchronizing order history. So customers who order online or offline can reorder through any channel. So these are just examples of things that we're trying to make available now for customers to better get advantage from having all of this great data on your customer, your products, and price on the same platform. And we're excited about the future, where I think you're going to see a lot more from us across all of our clouds, really geared towards making Salesforce that single channel for just about any kind of transactive model and ordering experience, online or off. So that's, really effectively the kind of introduction that I wanted to provide today. And here you can see one final example of what some of these flows mean, from a customer journey perspective, We really see increasingly that, commerce is just not an either or situation. This is a simple flow that you see illustrated on this slide, but even at its basic level, almost everybody's doing some browsing and research for products online first, even if they don't make the final purchase there. But certainly if they are making the final purchase there, then we want to make sure reorders happen, that the pricing is consistent and everything. So our goal is to have solutions that are really transparent to the customers. It's got the same information in every channel and allows you as companies to really architect those journeys across channel as if there were no differences at all, because in fact it is running on the same platform. So thanks. That's really what I hope to share, and hopefully that background kind of is good grounding for the rest of the conversation.
That is very helpful, Andy. I appreciate that. Marc, I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to jump in and hear a bit about what was your vision for Pulse Secure, and how does Commerce Cloud tie in with the quote cash side, and kind of what was the idea and vision of what you had in mind?
Sales motion and order management comes from a perpetual license and hardware sales vehicle, generally, with SKUs and things oriented around perpetual software and hardware. So we've had to, over the years, Ellen's been from Pulse has been instrumental in helping us move from that to a subscription model, which has been growing year over year at Pulse Secure. But we're still doing it with the ingredients of the perpetual and hardware order toolkit. So motivator for us in getting on the road of the roadmap of doing B2B commerce was CPQ, and taking the mature and appropriate treatment of subscriptions, contracts, renewals, renegotiations, co-terming, all the things that CPQ, subscription and contract management, gives us, with many of the things that were shown in your slide, and then be able to process orders on top of that engine, and also invite our channel to this motion using B2B Marketplace.
So I can give you a little bit more background into that. So Pulse Secure has recently announced a secure access as a service product. So really taking us away from that perpetual software and services and truly into a more of a SaaS type nature with contracts and that being critical to that. So this was a greenfield opportunity for us to address our end-to-end business processes as we move from a two-tier distribution channel focused organization. 99% of our business is done through the channel in two-tier distribution, and see how we could best optimize our direction of moving to a recurring revenue type of an organization. So one of the important things for us in launching a new product was the ability to onboard trial customers in a smooth fashion, really allowing them to request a trial and follow through with that from an end-to-end business process perspective. So that's really where B2B commerce played the role for us, is first, certainly initially, is the onboarding of trial customers and making that experience just, super quality from a customer journey perspective. So the B2B e-commerce platform would onboard our trial customer originally, and we would take that, as Marc was saying, through the CPQ process into contracts and subscription lines, fulfilling the entitlement to the as a service software, and coming back and making that trial available to that customer. But even more than that, it then comes into play that as we go and actually sell our product through our two-tier distribution, we're going to make sure that the visibility of that is visible to our distributors, to our resellers, and to our internal sales team as we take that trial customer to a paying customer. Knowing that the trial tenant instance came and was identified from the commerce platform, what that will allow us to do is ultimately, when the customer becomes a paying customer and they begin to utilize our service, we can show their appropriate subscriptions and the status of those subscriptions back to them in the B2B commerce portal. We're also going to be able to let them know what the utilization of their software is on our platform back in the B2B commerce platform. So while it, and we'll do that for all of our customers, whether they, whether they came in through two-tier distribution sale, they'll still be able, as an end customer, to come back and view what their tenant and their as a secure access as a service situation looks like, both commercially and from a how much am I consuming and do I need more. So it kind of becomes a more than just B2B e-commerce. It really becomes a customer portal for them from an end-to-end business perspective.
That's a really interesting setup, Ellen. Andy, why don't you give us a little perspective on how Commerce Cloud is kind of designed to improve customer engagement? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts there.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'd love to. And Ellen, I think, really nailed a lot of it, quite frankly, with her talk track. And I think the most important thing to think about in not all, but most B2B commerce experiences is that, generally speaking, looking at it as like through the same exact frame Ellen discussed, meaning it's a customer portal. And it's a single place for that customer to come and engage in usage, see, if they've got bills to pay or other access information. That's far and away the number one thing as it relates to adoption of B2B commerce selling motions. Quite frankly, we all have customers that probably do not want to have to go to a website to make an order because it's pretty easy for them to call somebody or send a rep an email or something like that. And this one-stop shop, it's a portal, not just a buying experience. It's probably one of the most important first steps to be thinking about because that will do more to drive adoption and engagement with the experience than anything. And that's something that we really embrace just because of the nature of how Salesforce B2B Commerce works. It effectively runs on our Experience Cloud portal technology here, and it's plugged into all the underlying data in a great way. But that's the first thing. I think a one-stop digital front door, if you will, that can get customers just about everything they need. I think that's first and foremost really important. Second, though, what I would say is that, we all have segments of customers that are different in terms of what they need, what they care about, et cetera. And, the platform also gives good ability to have different experiences for different kinds of customers and buyers. So larger enterprise customers that may have many subscriptions or many products and assets to manage and look at may need a more of an industrial kind of an interface that looks like spreadsheets and here's lists of previous orders and account management kinds of functions. Others are smaller customers that may want an interface that's solely reorder focused or very concentrated on a smaller set of tasks. And of course, the platform allows you to do that. So it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. You can offer really, distinguished and personalized experiences at the segment level in a pretty straightforward fashion using our technology. And I think that's important to consider because not every set of customers is going to use this in the same way. You may not even want to sell all the same products online in the same way for different customer segments. And so Salesforce B2B is great because it does give you that ability and flexibility to do that. In many cases, in fact, you may have different go-to-market motions in, say, international versus markets you have presence in, et cetera. So having that, not just that voice of the customer sensibility around, a customer portal, single one-stop shopping for all kinds of support, that's really important. But then I would encourage people, and I usually do, to kind of take it down a step further and really think about the smaller segments. And in fact, generally speaking, when we talk about just getting started with B2B commerce, we do often advocate, launching even just for a smaller segment. So you can really watch it and mind it carefully and include in your governance for the program the stakeholders who are responsible for service and support and other channels, because introducing B2B commerce will invariably upend the apple cart of processes for other people work. And so starting within some of those segments often is a really good way to do that.
Excellent. Marc, why don't you cover for us briefly, what were some of the essential elements, critical things that you thought were must-have to make this project a success, right? What made it work? What was going to make it work versus what was not?
Maturity curve on the subscription and contract treatment was key. And so that goes back to the CPQ and the price book and a lot of the fundamentals, the order, the tie-in with renewals, the order treatment, all of that was really our critical path, right? Exposing all of that value through B2B marketplace or commerce was kind of some of the payoff or one of the benefits, right? From my perspective, not the only benefit, but a big one. So that's hopefully answers that question, that it was really focused on the mature, thorough, and complex, insulate us from the complexities of co-terming something to 162 days, right? As opposed to nice 1-month segments or something, and then renewing that properly.
There are lots of solutions out there, right? Salesforce is not the only providing some kind of product. What were some of the features and functions that kind of stood out for you? Was it unified platform, or are there certain things that made the decision more obvious than others?
Right. So unified platform is a big motivator. Salesforce, we adopted it over 3 years ago as our primary CRM, and we move all of our pipeline through it for now 3.5 years. And so when you have that much investment in a platform, building on top of that allows us to have the same skill set, like, the same developers and techno-functional people we have working on Salesforce, lead the pipeline. They can now work on this, right? So there's some synergy there from that perspective. And so, yeah, the unified platform is a big one, right? We had looked at other kind of alternatives like Zuora and things in that subscription management space. And we're looking to that, and we kicked the tires on their APIs and the tools that they had. And at the end of the day, our needs being immature here and moving to maturity were satisfied by Salesforce, no doubt. So I think a combination of Salesforce had what we needed to manage the subscriptions, renewal contracts, and so forth. It is part of a stack. It was nice to have that, and then the synergy with having it, generally in one place.
That's good to hear. So, one of the things we commonly hear on projects of this size is, executive buy-in, right? That you can't just do it all by yourself. You can't get the IT department, can't just go off and take something like this. So how did you, from a soft skills perspective, how did you sell this vision and this idea to the executive team, and how did you get them to buy in?
I'll let Ellen field that.
The company as a whole was going through a transformation, right? Really trying to focus on this recurring revenue stream. And with the move to the new product, it really didn't take a whole lot of convincing for the entire organization to be on board for us to really put commitment behind that recurring revenue model and getting a seamless end-to-end experience with a lot of focus on customer journey and partner journey and all of that. And so having the unified platform, as you're talking about, is a great benefit to achieving an exceptional customer and partner journey experience.
Thank you. That's helpful. So, Andy, going back to you, you've seen a lot of projects around this, and you've got a couple of decades in space. What is your advice for customers like Pulse Secure as they try to roll out a project of this size and scale?
Thank you for the question. Well, I think we've already talked about the concept of leaning into, B2B commerce as part of an overall kind of one-stop shop digital portal for customers. That's really important. Beyond that, though, and I touched on this just a little bit earlier, but maybe I'll expand on it a little bit more. I think it's really important to know that you are changing the process and introducing some pretty significant alterations to the kind of company culture and how certain functions work. Even if, salespeople are complaining all the time today about, manual paperwork to process a renewal or do a reorder for somebody or whatever, this is going to be a disruption to some degree to how people do business. And most of the time that's what you want, right? You wouldn't be doing these programs if you weren't. But I think having, a real thorough process analysis view at the beginning, as Ellen sort of referenced and talked about, is important because it's critical to think about how people are going to engage and actually use things. I think it's also critical during that point in time to kind of relook at your overall kind of pricing, strategy in these things to just see if there are opportunities to consolidate, to kind of make the problem a little bit simpler as you look to invest in new tools and things. But frankly, probably my number one tip in all this is to treat it as a cultural business change and not a technology change. And by that, I mean, as you start to launch things like B2B commerce, do everything you can to make sure you've got a high degree of business side engagement with these changes. So people who are running sales ops, the people who are running, the sales team, the service team, et cetera, those should be examples of stakeholders on the governance of commerce or the overall quote to cash program. And as much as possible, your pilot or initial audiences should be sized such that you really can have that broad set of stakeholders locked arms to help make decisions based on customer feedback. There's almost nothing that we change or add to, say, commerce for ordering, reordering, renewal, or whatever. It's not going to have an impact on other people who could be doing that. And so having, especially the initial launches, be done in such a way that you can really encircle it with the kind of business owners of these functions to address and catch any enablement or tweaks that have to be made is just really, really important. Because everybody's going to make changes once they get live. And I think if you're breaking down the program into small enough chunks so you can get access to the right stakeholders, it tends to be pretty easy to adjust and make those changes as you move forward.
And Ellen, maybe this is a question for you, keying off of what Andy was covering there. How has this changed, or how does this change your kind of go-to-market approach? How is it changing how sales does follow-ups, activities? How does it change how marketing does their job? I'd love to get your perspective on some of that.
So with launching a new product line and your go-to-market motion, and you're kind of in a test mode when you're new to offering an as-a-service solution, right? And definitely you're wanting to build the pipeline for that, so on and so forth. So visibility, from marketing, from the website, trial requests, all of that stuff is critical. And the follow-up, to these is also critical. We're really following up from both a sales perspective, from a customer success perspective, really, giving our new customers on this platform, a helping hand to get onboarded to the, the secure access capabilities that are present and the reporting capabilities and so on. So it's really joined the organization as a whole at the hip to really get this to launch in a successful fashion.
Interesting. And Marc, as you've seen this, talk to us a bit about the impact on the sales operations team. Has that changed how they see their role and how they do business day to day?
Ellen could probably better answer that, but I'll give you a perspective. the sales operation team has really adopted our unified stack approach with really neat and powerful reporting that they've done relatively quickly. We use a combination of Salesforce reporting and Einstein analytics. Light on the analytics part at the moment with that, but we are actually have started to configure that and get value from that. Might be kind of orthogonal to your question, but that's the thing that jumps out at me in terms of sales ops, is because of this unified stack, they're able to turn around reports, powerful reports, beautiful reports quickly, and put them in front of our entire company. So Ellen, do you have any other thought? Yeah?
I'd be curious, have any of those reports given you any new insights, new discoveries, things you weren't expecting to see?
Well, frankly, not yet. For example, we're recreating some reports that we've had in other tools like Insight Squared and some other kind of disparate tools. And so while we're doing that, so we're doing just a replacement of these dashboards we had, we're getting improvements because the data's sitting right there instead of just adding fields and things. But then we're also instrumenting the insights and the predictions, right? In the insight, we're giving it the right fields to look at, tuning in a little bit. So that's like an exciting, side effect of doing these reports in Salesforce as well, but we haven't really realized the value yet.
And from their work perspective, it means that they're not having to jump in and out of multiple tools, find reports and dump them into Excel and move them over here and generate it.
Right, and they don't have to create work orders for my team to produce reports. They're empowered to do them themselves.
So ultimately, it should save you some time and pain as well.
Right, and already has, yes.
Ellen, you had some comments here as well?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, with the move to really being a subscription-based business, there's a lot of different metrics that we're looking at versus what we would have in the perpetual world, like annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, and all that kind of thing. So, and we're having to build that muscle and get our definitions of all those things correct between finance and rev ops, so that we're all singing from the same songbook, so to speak. So there's definitely been that kind of impact, but also the ability, as Marc's talking with the Einstein analytics and so on, to build some of that. And CPQ certainly is going to provide a lot of those things in a more out of the box type nature than what we're able to do.
Got it. So Andy, my question for you, and I think this probably will wind up the session unless we have some compelling customer questions, is what are we missing? What have we not talked about? What are we not seeing here? Marc just talked about Einstein. Tell us how Pulse Secure gets even more out of something like this.
Sure, great, love to. And I think that there's just tons of opportunity. It sort of goes without saying, given the potential power of having all of this in sort of one platform, and the team is sort of alluding to it already. I think first and foremost, it's important to recognize that, even launching things like customer portals and getting to the point that Pulse Secure is at are really meaningful. And it's a culmination of lots of work and lots of thinking. Most companies have been talking about this for a long time. That's great. But once you have that sort of plumbing in place and the connectivity, that's kind of when the fun starts, because, there's some relatively low-hanging things that you can start to do that will give you an opportunity to model your business and think about how much you want to kind of play with how these channels work together. So a great example, even relevant to Pulse Secure, is something like the idea of getting a trial for software started, onboarding into the trial process, or even things like, what if somebody starts to sign up for a trial and doesn't, or abandons a cart, for example, in a commerce experience. Well, we've got great tooling that is just included, like Process Builder and Flow, that would help you to sort of architect a cross-channel flow, and you can really play around with it. So, like, for example, if someone is trying to start a trial and maybe doesn't complete the process, you can orchestrate with just clicks the idea of sending them a follow-up email in 3 days. You can experiment with that. You can try to have a rep call in a certain number of days. You can play around with the durations. You can play around with whether it's a person calling them or maybe a lead gets sent to a partner. And you can change that mix, as much as the business will tolerate, to test timings and use of different ends of your channel as you're trying to go through this process, which is, I just think, wonderful, because nobody gets it right at first. And it's really going to be expected that you should see a lot of changes. But it's really powerful to be able to use, especially I love Process Builder. And certainly if you're using things like our Marketing Cloud, you can do even more kind of robust marketing journeys. But even, simple stuff like Salesforce Process Builder, where you can say, if somebody does this on the platform, I can do that, directing reps to engage, et cetera. That's really useful. The other cool thing about Einstein, and sorry to cut you off, I'll be done in a second. Einstein is one of these cross-platform services that is deeply ingrained in everything. So one of the things Einstein can do is inspect order history for customers and make recommendations around maybe what a next best action based on buying this. People historically have then done that. And those recommendations can work in every channel. So we can make those recommendations in the digital experience as an upsell, cross-sell, et cetera. But even more importantly, those same things can be made available to sales reps or service reps across the channel. So I think orchestrating cross-channel motions is a big, big opportunity. Whether somebody does something in an email and driving, or some action happening on a website that turns an action through marketing and through a rep or whatever, those are super powerful motions and a real chance to experiment. And then I'd start thinking about how to use Einstein across all of these touch points. Those are probably my two biggest recommendations.
Got it. And kind of as a final question here, Andy, there's been a bunch of announcements about Revenue Cloud as a new term, and it's no longer just CPQ or billing by itself. How is the new Revenue Cloud expected to impact customers?
Well, I think number one, it helps put a finer point on just the breadth of capabilities that we have here at Salesforce. And we can really help companies manage every aspect of their revenue funnel and pricing, purchasing, subscriptions, especially, all of these different new commercial models. So, we've been really hard at work on these things and even adding B2B commerce over the past couple of years. And so Revenue Cloud, more than anything, just helps us to better articulate the breadth of capability we have. And B2B commerce is right there alongside. It's already integrated with our CPQ and billing. So we're really excited to be partnering together with Revenue Cloud in the future.
Tell you about Standav. So at Standav, we're the leaders in transforming business systems. We obviously work in the Revenue Cloud and B2B Commerce Cloud space with Andy as well. So we're here to help you, customers of all sizes, reimagine your quote to cash experience with CPQ billing and now Commerce Cloud, like we're doing here with Pulse Secure. I still don't see any questions, and that's okay. I'd like to thank everybody for your attention and participation. Ellen, Mark, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure for you to spend the time and talk us through this. If anyone on the call has any questions, either for myself or for the panelists, you're welcome to send me an email at allen, allen.j@standev, and I'll make sure that you're taken care of. With that, I don't see any other questions. Darren, thank you for the nice comment there. I appreciate that. And we'll see everyone next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.